Hello everyone, it's Skil here from the Grim Reapers. Today I'll be going over a short hardware review and my initial impressions video for the Pimax Crystal Light. As I go through this video, I'll be showing a video I recorded using the DCS VR mirror of my very first flight using the Crystal Light. The flight's just a quick and dirty startup and takeoff in the Apache over Camp Bastion. Before we get into the review for the Crystal Light, just let me say that I've been using the original Crystal for about a year now and I still love it. In my opinion, it's still the best VR headset currently available on the consumer market for flight sims, and I've covered all the reasons why I think that in my previous videos for the Crystal. Anyway, Pimax asked if I wanted to try the Crystal Light and see how it compares to the original Crystal for flight simming. I agreed and they sent me the Crystal Light for this review. They did not ask for any favourable comments, only that I give my honest opinions and feedback. Before I get into the specs for the Crystal Light and the differences between it and the original Crystal, let me tell you why I think, in my humble opinion, the Crystal Light exists in the first place. In one of my last videos, for the original Crystal, some forward-thinking genius said this: I know the Crystal is a very expensive headset, which puts it out of reach for a lot of prospective users, simmers and gamers alike. I wonder, or more like dream, if Pimax would ever consider making a fully PC VR version of the headset. Without the standalone capability, and if they did, if the reduced functionality would result in a lower cost, which could be passed to the buyer. You never know, the lack of the standalone mode might even negate the need for a battery too. Now, I don't want to take all of the credit, but you're welcome. But seriously, the Crystal Light is Pimax's newest addition to the Crystal family of headsets, and to me it seems to be their response to the community's desire for a cut down, truly dedicated PC VR headset, which makes it perfect for flight simulations. Before I get into the unboxing, let's look at some of the Pimax Crystal Light specs from their website. I won't read through everything, but we'll pick out some of the highlights. As you can see, there are several options available when it comes to buying a Crystal Light. You can get the headset on its own, or with controllers, and you can get the version with local dimming, or without local dimming. Although at the time of making this video, the version without local dimming is still not available. The prices change according to the version you choose, and the prices shown here are correct as of July 2024. I was sent this version, the headset only with no controllers. All versions of the Crystal Light have the same 2880 by 2880 per eye display and the same 35 pixel per degree glass aspheric lenses as the original Crystal. The no local dimming version has a QLED panel, and the version with local dimming has the same QLED plus mini LED panel as the original Crystal. So straight away I can tell you that the Crystal Light has the same fantastic class leading visual quality as the original Crystal. It features inside out tracking, so no need for base stations. However, like the original Crystal, you can buy and fit the Lighthouse faceplate and use base stations if you prefer to use outside in tracking. Crystal Light is purely PC VR, so there is no standalone mode. This means there is no need for the XR2 processor and all the cooling it required. It features a manual IPD adjustment of between 58 and 72mm, which is adjusted using a small scroll wheel on the left hand side of the headset, so it doesn't have any electronics or motors associated with the auto IPD adjustment of the original Crystal. The Crystal Light does not have eye tracking, so it cannot use dynamic foveated rendering. However, it can use fixed foveated rendering, which I'll talk about later in the video. Perhaps the most obvious physical difference between the original Crystal and the Crystal Light is that there is no battery at the rear of the headset. All of these changes have resulted in the Crystal Light being about 310 grams lighter than the original, which is a substantial weight reduction. Let's see what comes with the headset only version of the Crystal Light. A Pimax support card with some useful links listed on it. A quick start guide, a wee packet which contains the various plug attachments for the power adapter, the headset itself, It has the cable already plugged in, and my small brain can't figure out how to get it all out of the box. The cable has DisplayPort and USB 3.0 connections. It also has a socket for the power supply to connect to, a lens cloth, and finally the power adapter. Having a look at the headset itself, you can see that it is basically the same front housing as the original Crystal, with some minor changes, so it does still look quite bulky compared to other headsets. It has a large foam facial interface. It has an adjustable Velcro top strap, which is much wider than the original Crystal. At the back, you can see it has a wide rear head plate, which has thick cushioning and, more importantly, no battery compartment. The main unit has the same 4 tracking cameras as the original Crystal. At the upper right side of the unit, there is the power and volume control buttons. And then at the left side, the cable connects directly into the headset instead of having the extension like the original. Next to the cable is the manual IPD adjustment scroll wheel. At the rear we have the ratchet wheel for adjusting the tightness of the head strap. And here we have the 35 pixel per degree glass aspheric lenses. The only difference between these and the ones on the original Crystal is that these are not removable or interchangeable. Connecting and setting up the Crystal Light is very easy. Simply connect the DisplayPort cable to your GPU, connect the USB plug to a suitable USB 3.0 port on your PC. There's no need for a powered hub for the light, as it comes with its own power supply. On your PC, install and open the latest version of Pimax Play, and that's it. When I connected my light for the first time, I was notified there was a firmware update for the headset, so I followed the on-screen instructions and it's updated without any issues. In Pimax Play itself, there are several tabs you can select to change options. Here you can see how I have mine currently set up. That was it, connected and ready to fly in no time at all. This review video is purely based on my own personal opinions and experiences using the Crystal Light for flight sims, specifically on this occasion, DCS. I'll put my current PC specs up on the screen, along with images of my in-game settings so you can judge the performance of the Crystal Light. I've left the in-game FPS counter running throughout the flight so you can see what kind of frames I'm getting. I am recording the VR mirror live whilst I'm flying, which for some reason always seems to make the footage look a lot less smooth in the recording than what I'm seeing inside the headset, so that's something to bear in mind. As I said earlier, the Crystal Light does not have eye tracking, so you cannot use dynamic or eye-tracked foveated rendering. However, you can still use fixed foveated rendering, which in essence means that the image in the centre of your viewable area is rendered at a higher resolution, whilst the areas on the outside of your main view are rendered at a lower resolution, meaning less demand on your GPU and higher frames. Now I'm aware that I run DCS with stupidly high graphics settings for VR, but I like the eye candy and I'm willing to sacrifice a few frames to get it. Even so, you can see that whilst flying with the Crystal Light at its full native resolution using fixed foveated rendering, I'm still getting pretty decent frames for VR, and more importantly, a smooth and enjoyable experience. The visuals inside the headset are crisp and clear. The combination of the panel and the 35 pixel per degree glass aspheric lenses is as amazing now as it was a year ago with the original Crystal. Fantastic. I can read all of the cockpit dials and displays without any problem and without having to lean forward. As I move my head around, I don't really notice any distortion within my main field of view, maybe a tiny amount at the very edge of my peripheral vision, but certainly nothing that distracts from the overall experience. I'll show some through the lens footage here. Bear in mind it's filmed on my phone, held up to one of the lenses. It really doesn't do the true image that you get inside the headset any justice, but it's the best I can do, I'm afraid. Talking about the field of view, I found mine to be about the same as the original Crystal, so not huge, but certainly better than I used to get with the likes of the HP Reverb G2 and the Pico 4. The colours are bright and vibrant, and I can see no discoloration across my field of view. The local dimming means that the dark areas, those in the footwells, are really dark, with the contrast between them and the light areas really popping out. Okay, now for my only real gripe about the Crystal Light, the audio. Using the basic standard down-firing headphones, it's not great. I mean, it's by far not the worst audio I've experienced from a VR headset. However, comparing these to the optional DMAS headphones is like night and day. The audio using the standard headphones is fine, it's usable, you can crank up the volume and hear everything you need to hear, but it's just lacking in that area. And by contrast, if you fit the DMAS headphones, the audio is actually great and adds a lot to the experience and the immersion. So my recommendation would be, if you're thinking about buying the Crystal Lite, or the original Crystal for that matter, definitely add the DMAS headphones to your order. As for the tracking, I can only speak to my experience of being seated for flight simulation and not jumping about for the likes of Beat Saber, but the inside out tracking for the Crystal Lite has been flawless so far. I've not had any problems with losing position or losing movement when turning my head and looking around. The video pass-through works well, the image is provided by the tracking cameras, so it's not great, but it's more than good enough to find your controls or your snacks or your keyboard and mouse stand. In conclusion then, do I think the Pimax Crystal Lite is worth getting for flight sims? Absolutely, without the shadow of a doubt. The Crystal Lite has mind-blowing visuals, decent tracking, and as long as you get the DMAS headphones, has brilliant audio. It is a proper, no-nonsense PC VR headset with no needless additions. And although it's a little bit sad to lose the eye tracking, the fixed foveated rendering does more than an adequate job of helping claw back some performance. I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a very high-end display, so your PC will still need to push a lot of pixels. But with tuning options provided by both Pimax and other third parties like Matt Bucchianeri and Tallymouse, you should still be able to get a great experience on a less than top of the range system. It is a high-end VR experience for a far more reasonable price than all of the other high-end offerings. I think it's an obvious upgrade path for anyone looking to move on from the likes of the Reverb G2, Pico 4 or Quest headsets. Having now seen what the Pimax can do with the Crystal Lite, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do with the Crystal Super when it launches, hopefully later this year. Anyway, thank you all for taking the time to watch this review, and I'll catch you later.